face and voice of Africa. The story of resurgent and burgeoning Africa is here, only on the Pulse of Africa channel. Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa.
Welcome to Ethiopia, your second home. As you gather for the 48th Ordinary Session of the Executive Council and the 39th Ordinary Session of the AU Assembly, the vibrant city of Addis Ababa opens its arms to you. This year, leaders from across the continent unite under the powerful theme, assuring sustainable water availability and safe sanitation systems to achieve the goals of Agenda 2063. Together, we embark on a journey of meaningful discourse and shared visions for a brighter future. But it's not just about discussions within these esteemed halls. As you can see, the streets of Addis Ababa are alive with transformation, all ready to welcome you. Don't miss the iconic Adwa Victory Memorial, a symbol of resilience and pride commemorating Africa's triumph over colonialism. It stands as a testament to the determination of a people ready to defend their sovereignty. Once again, a very warm welcome to Addis Ababa, a city in motion and a destination that feels like home. Together, let's shape the future. Hello and welcome. I am Samia Mohammed and this is Post Africa News. Coming to you live from Addis Ababa, the political capital of Africa. Today's news provides comprehensive coverage of the high-level deliberations at the 48th Ordinary Session of the Executive Council of the African Union, which began on Wednesday. Let's start with the African Union Commission Chairperson. The Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Ali Yusuf, has called for bold institutional reforms, stronger democratic safeguards, and innovative African-led financing mechanisms as the continent faces ongoing governance and security challenges. Speaking at the 48th Ordinary Session of the Executive Council, Yusuf acknowledged that while Africa's ambitions remain high, progress in key areas has been slow, particularly in the promoting political stability. He expressed concern over limited advancements in addressing unconstitutional changes of government, admitting that the Peace and Security Council has often been reactive rather than preventive.
Agenda of this summit, the 39th summit, has already been distributed. We have endeavored to try to compact it as much as possible. We know the ineffectiveness of marathon summits. The key of success of our meetings depends on our capacity and to concentrate on strategic issues and also the questions that are obviously the priority, the absolute priorities of the continent.
Yusuf welcomed the return of Guinea and Gabon to the African Union following successful political transitions, describing their resentment as a sign of African solidarity. However, he voiced concern over a new unconstitutional change of government in some member states in 2025.
I commend and welcome the return of Guinea and Gabon to the African Union family after the support of the Commission and after their successful transition. Unfortunately, Madagascar and Guinea-Bissau in 2025 have gone through unconstitutional change of government. The Commission endeavors to support these countries in their transition process.
Security threats, especially in the Horn of Africa, remain serious, with terrorist groups continuing to operate. He stressed that the need for stronger continental coordination despite the ongoing mediation efforts. Amid these challenges, the chairperson highlighted achievements by specialized AU agencies such as the African Continental Free Trade Area and the Africa CDC, noting their role in strengthening integration and resilience.
Progress is tangible. I think the office there, out the NEPAD, the Africa CDC, AMA, and I can't mention all of them. These are active mechanisms that are working in harmony with member states more than ever before. The continent needs to harness these and then to boost the dynamics of development. Indeed, we need innovative sources of financing, and then we will have an event on this matter on the margins of this summit. We have to associate the African private sector to our programs so that they can contribute to the financing of these development programs, associate the civil society, and associate also the philanthropic foundations. No actor should be ignored and be left behind.
A key focus of his address was financing Africa's development agenda, calling money the lifeblood of development. Yusuf urged greater domestic resource mobilization and stronger involvement of the private sector, civil society, and philanthropic institutions. As Africa prepares for its upcoming summit, Yusuf emphasized that reform, democratic accountability, improved security coordination, and financial sovereignty must shift from aspiration to concrete action. Ethiopia's Minister of Foreign Affairs Gideon Timotheus has called for deeper African unity and stronger continental leadership in the face of rising geopolitical competition and persistent unconstitutional changes of government across the continent. Speaking at the opening of the 48th Ordinary Session of the Executive Council of the African Union in Addis Ababa, the minister said this past year we have witnessed mixed developments in the continent. The minister emphasized that Africa must safeguard its sovereignty and collective interest in an evolving global order marked by intense competition for critical minerals, strategic roles, and technological dominance. African unity must be real, and the African Union must be strong if we are to defend our continent from predatory moves that might come from all concerns, Gideon said. He warned against external actors who continue to view Africa through a mentality of domination, extraction, and exploitation.
As we gather here today, sitting under the umbrella of our union, which was established with the purpose of achieving political independence and economic integration, we are reminded of the importance of unity for our collective security, independence, and prosperity. This past year, we have witnessed mixed developments in our continent. It is encouraging to note that we stood together to promote a common position with regard to UN Security Council reform, climate justice, and the reform of the global financial architecture. A common position on these matters was on display, in particular, in the first G20 held on African soil in South Africa, Pretoria.
The minister noted that while the continent has made progress in advancing a common African position on UN Security Council reform, climate justice, and global financial architecture reform, challenges remain. He pointed to ongoing unconstitutional change of government as threats to the normative foundation of the Union. Gideon stressed that Africa does not seek charity, but true partnership grounded in strength and unity.
Many big and middle powers are viewing Africa as a site for their competition and as an instrument of their ambitions. Unfortunately, a mentality of domination, extraction, and exploitation still colors the prism through which many external actors view our continent. African unity must be real, and African Union must be strong if we are to defend our continent from predatory moves that might come from all corners. What we need is not mere charity or goodwill of others, but true partnership, and that, more than anything, requires true strength which emanates from unity. Therefore, I hope that this session of the Executive Council will contribute to bolstering our unity and revitalizing our commitment to our shared objectives.
He urged member states to use the current session to bolster continental solidarity and reinforce African ownership of African solutions. The Executive Council session precedes the Assembly of Heads of State and Government set to convene later this week in Addis Ababa. Ethiopia has reaffirmed Africa's growing economic integration and climate leadership as key pillars of the continent's development agenda. Addressing the 48th ordinary session of the African Union Executive Council, Ethiopia's Foreign Minister Gideon Timotheos underscored significant progress made in 2025 under Agenda 2063 and the African Continental Free Trade Area. The aspiration for a continental free trade area has now turned into a living reality, and its implementation is accelerating on multiple fronts, he said, pointing to advances in regional integration, primary healthcare, agriculture, productivity, and climate action.
In 2025, Africa strengthened its regional integration through Agenda 2063 and the African Continental Free Trade Area. The aspiration for a continental free trade area has now turned into a living reality, and its implementation is accelerating in multiple fronts. There have also been progresses in strengthening primary health care, improving our agricultural productivity, and tackling climate change. Our continent is making steady progress in the social and economic spheres, and the African Union is playing an important role in this journey. But the road ahead and the work that lies before us require greater unity and resolve. We are still very far from the Africa we want, and hence we need to redouble our efforts.
The minister also stressed the need for a fair global financial reform, including debt relief and equitable climate financing, arguing that no global platform can be credible without Africa playing its rightful role in shaping international decisions. Looking ahead, Gideon highlighted Ethiopia's preparation to host COP32, describing it as an opportunity for Africa to lead the global conversation on climate justice and sustainable development. He linked the upcoming climate conference to the AU's theme of sustainable water availability and safe sanitation.
In the coming years, Africa's common voice must uphold African ownership of African solutions by defending peace, constitutional order, and sovereignty through strong continental leadership. We must also continue with our demand for fair global partnership and financial reform, including debt relief and climate financing, grounded in equity and respect. No global platform can be considered credible or be effective without Africa having its rightful role in shaping and influencing international decisions. Finally, as Ethiopia prepares to host COP32, I want to take this opportunity to assure you that we view this as an opportunity for Africa to lead the global conversation on climate justice and sustainable development. As the theme of this year happens to be sustainable water availability and safe sanitation, it also offers us an opportunity to carefully consider how we can rejuvenate the ecology from which our water resources originate.
Africa is blessed with majestic rivers such as the Nile, Congo, Niger, and Zambezi, and Great Lakes including Victoria, Tanganyika, and Malawi, he said. He urged that these shared resources be managed in a spirit of Ubuntu with mutual respect and consideration for the needs of all. The minister concluded by calling for renewed commitment to building the Africa we want through unity, resilience, and collective action.
The African Union prioritized peace and security through mediation, negotiation, and Peace and Security Council. It works to prevent conflict and to address root causes for the lasting stability across the continent. Progress in regional cooperation and conflict prevention both support the broader development growth across our continent. These efforts strengthen our resilience and pave the way for sovereignty across the continent. And all African leaders will be focusing to reinforce these mechanisms on the 39th session of the African Union Assembly from February 14th to 15th, 2026, right here in Addis Ababa. And we, Pulse of Africa, will be your trusted media platform where you get all information across the continent. Make sure to stay tuned.
If you don't tell your story, it will be told by others. They'll talk of hunger, they'll talk of war, they'll talk of conflict, but they'll not say the things that are happening in Africa that are positive.
This is POA, a very new media organization in Ethiopia.
We have to be voice for ourselves. There is no one else that can tell our story better than us.
If it's defending African matters, then go for it. Go for Pulse Media.
This is the Pulse of Africa. Tune in, follow the journey, and learn about the news and what's shaping our African continent.
I am really impressed by the work that they are doing, by telling the African story from Africa for Africans. I think it's definitely needed.
Please subscribe to the Pulse of Africa on all platforms.
United Nations Economic Commission for Africa Executive Secretary Clever Gatete has urged African countries to rebuild their development model as global financial and trade systems undergo major shifts. Speaking at the 48th Ordinary Session of the African Union Executive Council, Gatete said the traditional development model, exporting raw materials, importing manufactured goods, and relying on concessional financing, is no longer sustainable. He warned that slowing global growth, shifting supply chains, shrinking fiscal space, and rising borrowing costs are placing additional pressures on African economies. Only 3 African countries currently hold investment grade rating, while 90 remain unrated, increasing the cost of infrastructure financing.
Indeed, we meet at a time of profound economic transition. As we speak, global growth is slowing, trade tensions are intensifying, and supply chains are being reorganized. Furthermore, capital has become more expensive, and development assistance that was once a predictable pillar of support is declining. This is exacerbated by a worsening security situation and persistent climate change. We are witnessing a transition to a world economy organized around industrial strategy, geopolitical competition, and control of key resources. In short, the rules of development are changing. For decades, developing countries relied on an external model: export raw materials, import manufactured goods, and finance development through concessional flows. But that model is no longer viable.
When finance is expensive, infrastructure is delayed. When infrastructure is delayed, production is constrained, Gatete said, stressing that high borrowing costs hinder industrialization. Despite these challenges, he noted that Africa possesses vast land, renewable energy resource, critical minerals, and the world's youngest workforce. What's lacking, he argued, is an integrated continental economic system capable of transforming these assets into value.
Across the continent, African governments are managing tighter fiscal space, higher borrowing costs, and limited credit ratings. It is not right that today only 3 African economies are investment rated, with 5 approaching investment grade status, while 19 countries have never been rated at all. This state of affairs significantly increases the risk premium African countries pay to finance development. But more than a fiscal challenge, it is also a structural one. When finance is expensive, infrastructure is delayed. And when infrastructure is delayed, production is constrained. And when production is constrained, industrialization stalls. Meanwhile, Africa possesses land, renewable energy potential, critical minerals, and a young labor force. But do we have the economic system that allows those assets to generate value? This is why the African Union's theme of the year, assuring sustainable water availability and safe sanitation systems to achieve the goals of the Agenda 2063, is so important.
Gatiti reframed water and sanitation as economic infrastructure rather than merely social service, emphasizing that industry, agro-processing, and urban productivity depend on reliable water system. He highlighted that hundreds of millions of Africans still lack access to safe water and sanitation. He identified the African Continental Free Trade Area as the continent's most important development platform, stressing that regional integration is essential as global trade becomes more fragmented.
As global trade fragments, regional integration becomes vital. I'm confident that Africa will industrialize because our continental market allows production to be organized internally. But it will require a policy response, which must be deliberate, coordinated, and anchored in our economic priorities.
Outlining 5 priorities: domestic resource mobilization, integrated infrastructure, regional value chains, full AfCFTA implementation, and digital transformation, Gatiti called for improved tax system and innovative financing tools, including green and blue bonds, to support Africa's industrial and economic transformation. Chairperson of the Executive Council and Angola's Foreign Minister Tete Antonio has called for stronger institutional reform, financial sustainability, and enhanced global positioning of Africa as Angola concludes its term in the rotational chairmanship of the African Union. Speaking at the opening of the 48th ordinary session of the Executive Council, Antonio described the moment as both a time for assessment and projection of the Union's future direction. He highlighted key achievements during Angola's tenure, including the completion of the AU leadership selection process, progress in implementing the African Continental Free Trade Area, and efforts to improve the efficiency and predictability of AU organs in the line with Agenda 2063. On peace and security, Antonio underscored Angola's diplomatic engagement, including support for mediation efforts in the Sahel and the Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda conflict, as well as stabilization initiatives in Sudan, Somalia, Libya, and the Central African Republic. A major focus of his address was AU financial reform. Antonio urged member states to support the adoption of a new scale of assessment to replace the totally outdated current system.
It is therefore necessary to adopt a new scale of assessment based in the principles of solidarity, equity, and the ability to pay. The options proposed by the F-15, in particular options 3 and 4, allow us to have a more balanced distribution of our contributions. It reinforces our financial resilience and supports the attainment of the Johannesburg targets for self-financing of our organizations.
He emphasized that proposed reforms would ensure fairness, solidarity, and financial resilience, aligning with the Johannesburg targets for self-financing. Angola's decision to remain in Tier 1 for the 2027 and 2029 cycle, he said, aims to facilitate consensus among member states. Antonio also stressed the importance of Africa's strategic positioning in global governance forums, including participation in the G20, and called for unity, flexibility, and dialogue in addressing sensitive issues before the Council. That's the news for this hour. Thank you for joining us, and goodbye for now.